Hello and welcome once again to this Red Gaming Tech video of myself, Amata, where this time I'm having a look at Indivisible, a RPG developed by Lab Zero and published by 505 Games. It is currently available on the Steam store for £34.99, so this game is a full price affair. Now, you may be familiar with this game because it was created thanks to a Kickstarter campaign or Indiegogo campaign, but same sort of thing, and I actually backed this game on Kickstarter, which is why I have the game. So while I was not given this game for free, I did back it on Kickstarter just as a matter of disclosure. So you guys should be familiar with Lab Zero. They're more well known for the fighting game Skullgirls, and this game is a very, very different kettle of fish. It is, as I say, a turn-based RPG, but with a difference. So I'm actually fairly into the game, about 3 hours or so, and unfortunately I am right before a big boss fight. So I'm going to cut out any cutscenes to not spoil anything, but just if you even don't want to know what the boss looks like, obviously I'm quite late in reviewing this game, so you probably already know, but just as fair warning. So as you can see, it has an interesting graphic style, mix of the sort of cartoon look of the characters and these really cool, very pretty 3D backdrops. So let's go on, shall we? Alright, here we go. So, as you can see, we've got our characters on the screen and they each have button prompts underneath them. So this dude here is activated with Y, this guy I'm using now is activated with B, and this fellow with the arrows is activated with A, and the main character, Ajna, is activated with X. And it is turn-based because obviously, as you can see, there's a cooldown associated with each character as the 3 buttons they have available for each of them refill over time. And that's a very interesting way of doing turn-based combat because you still have to wait for your turn to actually allow your attacks to refill, but you're not just standing around, you know, it feels more active, I guess is what I'm trying to say, than your traditional, say, JRPG, for instance. And it's also helped by the fact that each of the characters also has a directional attack, or has directional attack, sorry, should I say. So, for example, once I get a chance to attack, if I do like this, I can do like a above attack, and if I go like this with this dude, he jumps into the air, and the same with the main character as well, of course. They each have, on their normal abilities, directional attacks as well. So it kind of has some fighting game-ish elements here. And they each have the ability to sort of power up themselves as well. And it just has this really cool, very active, very frenetic style of gameplay, which I really, really like. It's an interesting mix. And to be honest with you, I don't actually like turn-based combat all that much, like traditional turn-based combat, I mean. But I actually really enjoy the combat in this game, I have to say. I just noticed that my healer is dead because I wasn't paying attention because I was talking. In fact, 2 of my characters are dead, which is really bad. So I may have to restart this fight, we'll have to see. So yeah, the boss obviously has his own turns and stuff as well, and you can try and block, which fills the bar and the top left, and as does attacking. So I am going to have to restart because I'm terrible. But it kind of gives me more time to talk through the combat of this game. Now, there is quite a bit of it, and the combat is quite difficult. You know, if you aren't paying attention like I was just now, you will get destroyed, even on your most basic enemies. So, as I was kind of saying before I died horribly, there's a bar in the top left which fills with attacks, as you can see, but it also fills with successful blocks. Now, as with most games that have a blocking mechanic, it has a mechanic where if you block perfectly, it's a perfect block, you don't take any damage, and that's what I just did there. And if I do that enough, the bar will fill up, and I can kind of do these special attacks that I keep doing. So So I just really love the combat in this game. It just feels, it doesn't feel turn-based at all, but it is. It is ostensibly a turn-based game. But it just feels more involved. I think that one of the reasons I tend to dislike traditional turn-based combat is I just don't feel very involved. I just kind of feel like I'm pressing buttons to make a movie go, almost. You know, we can, oh, let's get this fight out of the way so we can get back to the cutscene sort of situation. And that's obviously not very engaging. And that's just my personal hang-up. It's not like a criticism of turn-based combat. It's just, for me, I don't find it typically all that engaging. And the turn-based games that I do like, will either I'll like it despite the fact that I'm not overly keen on the combat. Like, for example, Final Fantasy X is a prime example of that. Or it'll be a different take on turn-based combat like this game, where because you're not just, you know, selecting items from a menu, it feels more involved. Like, they could just have a more traditional menu system where, you know, you have your character, you select which move you want to do, or they can kind of have the system that they do in this game, in that, you know, you've got the direction system which decides what attack your character actually does. And they've also got this meter system as well, which encourages you to try and time your blocks properly, which I am very much not doing. So, there we go, and let's get a special attack going. So I definitely think there's some fighting game influences in this, just through the systems themselves, but it is a turn-based RPG, ostensibly. It's just one that does things very differently. And it kind of all ties in together with the style of the game, in terms of the graphics, music, and all the presentation and voice acting that goes along with it. You know, Lab Zero have definitely put the funding they received thanks to the Indiegogo campaign to excellent use. And going off topic of the game, I actually kind of praised them at the time because, well, they asked for 1 million, which is a lot of money, obviously. And a lot of people were like, oh, why are you asking for so much? Because that's the realistic amount that they would need to make this game. So I'm just glad that they were kind of forthcoming and saying, look, if you want this game to exist, this is how much we need. And obviously they got it, and here we are. Now this is going to be annoying, I can just get the feeling. Oh. Okay, let's try that again without failing. That would be just grand. There we go, lovely. Okay, let's... Almost. Okay. I'll walk through what that is later. Right now, Ow. Let's skip. Alright, let's try and defeat this guy, we'll see. I did actually already attempt to record and did horribly, even more horribly than I've already done. So, let's see how we do this time. But yeah, I just love how active everything feels. I feel like I actually have control over the battle, which is something I don't normally get with traditional turn-based games. And the combat does make up a big chunk of this game, as I was kind of saying earlier. You know, you are coming across random encounters, but they're not really random. You know, you can see the enemies sort of walking around in the world, and you can kind of get a preemptive attack on them when it's not a boss fight, obviously. And you can try and not get hit yourself when they try to attack you first, because they very much can, and it hurts a lot, actually, I will say. It really hurts when an enemy manages to get the preemptive attack on you instead of the other way around. But obviously, given that this is an RPG, there's also a story as well. Now, I'm only 3 hours in, as I said. That, in RPG terms, that's nothing, as I'm sure you will agree. So we're just kind of discovering the larger story and the larger villain, which is actually who we're fighting right now. And it's really unfortunate that I just happen to be in a place where we're at a really important boss fight, but there's not really much I can do. It wouldn't really be a fair show of the game to show it like from the start. to be honest, because it takes a while to get going, as is typical of RPGs. Although I will say it doesn't take as long as some. It's actually fairly snappy in comparison to some RPGs I've played, where an hour later you're just starting combat, for example. Ooh. That was lucky. That was not so lucky. Nope. So obviously, as I was saying, the combat is a huge part of this game. The enemies you come across in the world are actually fairly difficult. You can't just spam. You actually have to go a little bit of strategy, especially as some enemies will spawn more. And obviously, the more enemies there are, the more difficult it is, because some of these enemies like genuinely hit really, really hard. So that's what I like. Even the base combat of just like the normal enemies is entertaining, which is obviously really important. I feel like I've gone the wrong way. Yes, I have. Amazing. But obviously when you're talking about an RPG, it's not just about the combat, it's all about the worlds, characters, dialogue, are the characters interesting, are the stories interesting, that sort of thing. And I will say, like, because it's kind of got this more cartoony style going on, it really kind of plays into that with the characters as well. Like, they all have this kind of like very over the top, not over the top, sort of large than life, I suppose is a better way to say it, personalities, and definitely sort of plays into their each individual tropes, and the characters play well off of each other. Like, there is some voice acting on important cutscenes, and I will say the voice acting is actually pretty well done, and suits each character well. It's kind of got this sort of lighter, more comedic feel with some of the character interactions, which is good, because some RPGs take themselves a little too seriously, which is, is fine, but it's nice to play an RPG that isn't like, oh my god, super serious, or like, we're defending the world sort of situation. Like, that's not actually the case here, which is nice. It's just like a more personal quest. At least at the moment, it might become more... It might become more, what's the word I'm looking for? Might become more global, I guess, as we actually go through the game. I'm just going to shut up because I didn't skip past this bit. That's really annoying. No, please. Oh my god. Alright, it sent me back before the boss fight, and obviously I can't do that again because I've actually done that twice now trying to get past that bit. I will say that part with the diagonal laser beams, not good. Not good, Lab Zero, because I literally was trapped and could not do anything, and now I've been forced to do those boss fights again. But let me finish my thoughts, because I feel like you guys have seen a lot of this game. You haven't really seen the characters, which is a bit of a shame, but it plays into this more cartoony style with the characters kind of being larger than life and having these really sort of funny interactions, and it definitely has a very unique feel to it, just not only through the graphics, which again are gorgeous, and I do love the animated style of the characters themselves, but it all has this very unique feel to it, but it also feels familiar at the same time, in that, you can clearly see where the influences have come from like the RPG elements to like, some of the fighting game-ish elements, and obviously they've learned a lot of stuff and really done something, I would say, very unique. There's a lot of games out there that have unique elements or whatever, but in a genre as broad as RPG, you can really kind of play and experiment with story, character, gameplay, combat, and a lot of the time RPGs they kind of just choose the safe option. I don't feel like they've done that here, so I feel like you like what you see. You should definitely check it out. As I said, it is full price, so maybe wait for a sale, because I think £35 might be a touch high for some. Personally, I think it's worth it. That's why I backed it on Kickstarter. I had to go for the £30 option, I believe, to get the game, so It's not like I've gotten this game cheap or anything, because I genuinely haven't. I can't remember exactly how much I paid because it was such a long time ago, but the point is, yeah. I personally think it's worth the price. You know, there's clearly a lot of love and attention being put into this, all the different characters, all different combat styles, because there is a party. Like, I could have different characters than I have. Like, this is the party I have at the moment, but this character I haven't even used, actually. Razmi is kind of like a very morose lady with like a tiger skin on her, and she uses fire abilities and can heal. This guy I haven't actually never used. Let me actually look at him quickly. So, area of effect. He's an area of effect. So, if you're in an area where there's lots of little minions, he might be cool. And obviously there's this lady as well, who's very unique in how she plays. She's actually quite difficult to do properly because she's got all these different modes that she can do. So there's a lot of different play styles that you can have here as well. I've gone with this setup personally because it suits me personally. Ginseng and Honey I think is a better healer than Razmi, as much as I prefer Razmi as a character. I've gone with this just purely for the combat, to be honest. And, you know, I will actually, I think, play around and see if I can get a better setup for the combat. You know, not for this particular fight. I think I've got the best setup I have for the moment. But yeah, it's really, really cool. I really like it. Definitely have not been disappointed by this game, and the wait was more than worth it. There's only one other game I actually kickstarted, which is Pray to the Gods. And fingers crossed that one's good as well. Anyway, that's me done for this video, guys. Sorry I couldn't show you a bit more, but if I have to do that boss fight again, I may kill myself. In all seriousness, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.